I am, and that's why I brought it up. I think that we have a formal IAD process, a formal complaint taking process. Inside of that, if we have the ability to help citizens understand why officers acted the way they did, and officers to understand how civilians perceive their action, is a good thing. And mediation puts those two at the same table for a conversation and a dialogue. It actually kind of goes towards my whole approach for discipline. I see discipline in many cases as an opportunity for the organization to get better, as teachable moments, if you will. If an officer makes an honest mistake, then I think we have a responsibility as a department to say, was our training appropriate? Were our policies clearly articulated? Was our supervision and leadership right? Because if that officer made an honest mistake, their chances are that another officer might make the same mistake. So let's turn that into a teachable moment. But what I've told officers is I want to be clear. If you violate the law, if you act unethically, immorally, the full weight of the department is going to come down on you, just as it should. So I see mediation fitting in there for a chance for us to understand how we're perceived by the community, how the officers to understand how their actions are, and maybe even the public to understand why we did what we did. So I think mediation absolutely has a piece in our discipline process and in our training process. We actually do some mediation now. I'd actually like to see it expanded and used more mainstream.
As far as this?
Yes. Yes.
You're going to keep going more. Yes.
I don't. We are in the process of working with a new commander in internal affairs. We're talking about restructuring. I talked about the police districts. We need to, if we can just for a second, focus on our primary function. I know all of that is important, but our primary mission is to reduce crime. And so I want to make sure that we have the right resources in place to reduce crime. We were very successful in 2012. We saw a 12.4% reduction in crime. I think that's important. The men and women of the department did a great job. You have to look at the totality and not just take out those hot button issues, local control, civilian review, mediation. You have to look at the whole picture. It wouldn't. For the last 12 years, 3 terms, that Mayor Slay has been in office. Policing and law enforcement in the city has been a priority. Right now, the city invests about $250 million between the police department, the courts, corrections, public safety. As long as that investment continues going forward, we'll be able to prioritize law enforcement in the right way. So I don't see, one of the things about being police chief is you want to stay out of the politics of it. Our goal, our mission is to reduce crime. And so we're going to continue to go out and do that mission, whether it's another term with Francis Slay, whether it's Jimmy Matthews, or whether it's Lewis Reed. We're going to continue to go out and do that mission. We promote from within. So whether it's patrolman to sergeant or sergeant to lieutenant, we always promote from within. So the candidates for the chief's job all came from within. So we all worked with Joe Mokwa, we all worked with Ron Henderson, we all worked with Dan Isom. So for Chief Mokwa, I was his aide, I worked in his office. Clerical. I would help with the paper flow. I would help with issues that came up, whether they were in the community or constituent issues. I'd help interact with the board. So a variety of roles like that. Administrative. Yeah, I knew Greg Shepard was a retired police officer from here, so I was familiar with Greg Shepard, yes. No, there was a contract that S&H Towing had a long-term contract with the police department. At one point, I asked for an audit to be done towards the end of the contract, towards the end of when the issue started to be exposed. We began an audit because I asked for an audit to be done. So as soon as we became aware of any questions of questionable behavior, we started an audit here and have supplied all of that information to the U.S. Attorney's Office, to the FBI, everybody that investigated it. Well, again, I think the U.S. attorneys looked at it, I think the FBI looked at it, I think the Circuit Attorney's Office looked at it, and so if they didn't find any wrongdoing, I don't know what you would expect. So I think outside agencies, outside departments looked at it, and if they would have had any issues or questions, that they would have raised those. So certainly I don't believe that there's any ongoing activity that's going on now, and I was hopeful that if any of those agencies saw any criminal behavior, that they would have followed through and prosecuted them. I think that it's important that the department reflects the community that it serves, and that's why we talked about promotions. Al Atkins, who was promoted to assistant chief, is an African American. We promoted 5 majors, an African American female, Rochelle Jones, an African American male, Ronnie Robinson. So those are reflective of the community that we serve. I think it does a couple of things. I think it sets the tone inside the department that competent leaders can be white, they can be black, they can be male, they can be female. And I think it says a message to the community that we're sensitive to all parts of the city. As we talk about policing strategies, we don't talk about we police North St. Louis one way and South St. Louis the other way. We talk about policing strategies, and that's what I like about hotspot policing. It lets us put the resources into the areas of their problem, and whether they're in a neighborhood in Walnut Park, Penrose, North St. Louis, or Dutchtown, Gravelly Park, and South St. Louis, we're going to put the resources where the problems are to address the problems.
Yeah.